I have something that will change everything.
I want to buy Greenland.
You'll make them an offer they simply can't refuse.
We really just buy Greenland?
I believe there's a way.
This is a man who does not take no for an answer.
What does a man do?
He fights.
This is not the end. It's just a beginning.
Vice President J.D. Vance on Friday slammed Denmark for failing to prioritize Greenland's security, escalating rhetoric between Washington. Vance made his remarks at the space station northwest of Greenland, and there was some pretty cool imagery that came out of this. There was some really neat imagery that came out of this. I'm a fan of JD. Initially, I wasn't, but I'm glad he's doing what he's doing. Let's jump into this Greenland situation here.
Hey guys, how we doing? Please, at ease. At ease. Good Lord, sit down and eat. Sit down and eat. Don't let the Vice President stop you guys from getting your chow here. How we doing? It's cold as shit here. Nobody told me. Well, thank you all for everything you do, and thanks for having us. So please sit down, guys. Please. I wish you'd eat your food. Usha and I are thrilled to be here. It's a really beautiful flight, actually. You fly over some pretty cool spots. I've never been to Greenland. Apparently, I'm the first Vice President to ever visit Greenland, so that's a pretty cool thing. But we're looking forward to hanging out and getting to know you guys and understanding what you do. So I think what do we have? So we're gonna talk to the command and some of the Guardians about what exactly the base does and all the important ways it contributes to national security. We're going to get a briefing, of course, about what you guys do every day, and then we're going to talk just about, as you've heard, we have some interest in Greenland from the Trump administration. So we're going to talk a little bit about that with our friends in the media. But I just want to say thank you all. Thanks for having us, and thanks for being here. Thanks for doing what you do. The colonel told me that this is a one-year unaccompanied duty station. When we were flying in, we were wondering whether you guys were allowed to bring your families here. So I know it's a lot of sacrifice to spend a year away from your families, but the mission is really important. The Trump administration, the president is really interested in Arctic security. As you all know, that's a big issue, and it's only going to get bigger over the coming decades. So thanks for doing what you do. What's the plan here? So I thought I was serving food, but it looks like I've already got their food. What's the plan from here, guys? I'm sorry? Okay.
JD Vance, I'm going to jump into the presser that he had with JD Vance where he took some questions from the press while he was at Greenland. Billy Bravo says $3.86 for gas at Costco in Las Vegas. Shout out. Honestly, I was having a conversation with my mom, and she was talking about the entire Trump administration. You didn't see any of this from the Biden administration. They were contained in their little bubble. They didn't do any pressers. They didn't visit anything. If you guys remember correctly, Kamala Harris, the quote unquote worst border czar ever, never visited the border except when she went and she was running for her the presidency. It was like 1,000-something, 100-odd days where the quote unquote border czar finally visited the border. And the entire time they said the border's secure, the border's secure. It wasn't secure. Joey B was just, he was waking up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever, taking a nap at 11, eating ice cream at 2, changing his diaper at 3, and then that was his day.
And let me say just a couple of other things, and then we'll take some questions from the reporters. So number one, I think a lot of Americans wonder, why does Greenland matter so much? Why does the mission of this base matter so much to the American people? And I learned a lot about that today myself. Of course, you can read about it in a book, but I saw it up close and personal. And if, God forbid, to my fellow Americans, if a missile was fired from an enemy country or an enemy submarine into the United States, it is the people here before us who would give notice to our brave men and women further south in the United States to let people know what was coming and, God willing, to try to shoot it down and prepare for it. That's one of the things that we do at installations like this. We know that Russia and China and other nations are taking an extraordinary interest in Arctic passageways and Arctic naval routes, and indeed in the minerals of the Arctic territories. We need to ensure that America is leading in the Arctic, because we know that if America doesn't, other nations will fill the gap where we fall behind. So what you guys do is so critically important. I think a lot of Americans, certainly I, didn't realize it fully until President Trump started talking about the importance of our Arctic mission, about building upon it and ensuring that America can lead in the Arctic for the next generation. And now I want to talk about, of course, the interaction and what Denmark, I think, has done, and sometimes in partnership with us. But let's be honest, what Denmark over the last 20 years has failed to do in some cases, because we know that unfortunately this place, this base, the surrounding area is less secure than it was 30, 40 years ago, because some of our allies haven't kept up. As China and Russia have taken greater and greater interest in Greenland, in this base, in the activities of the brave Americans right here, we know that too often our allies in Europe have not kept pace. They haven't kept pace with military spending, and Denmark has not kept pace in devoting the resources necessary to keep this base, to keep our troops, and in my view, to keep the people of Greenland safe from a lot of very aggressive incursions from Russia, from China, and from other nations. Now, President Trump, as he says all the time, and as a lot of people recognize, is a president of peace. We want to have good relationships with everybody. That includes, even to the extent possible, the Chinese and the Russians. But part of having good relations is showing your strength when you have to. And unfortunately, the story of Greenland over the past 20 years when it comes to security is that we've underinvested in the infrastructure, we've underinvested in the security architecture, and we've underinvested in the brave men and women who are doing a very hard job, as Mike said, to keep all of us safe. That has to change. Now, when I pointed out a couple of weeks ago that in some ways, with all due respect to our Danish allies, they had not kept pace, there was a lot of criticism from Denmark, a lot of attacks at the Trump administration, at the president, at me, at others in our administration for saying the obvious, which is that Denmark hasn't done a good job at keeping Greenland safe. And one of the things I heard was, well, what about the many Danes who lost their lives in the war on terror fighting alongside the United States? Well, look, we obviously honor the sacrifice of our Danish friends in the war on terror 20 years ago, just as, for example, the French honor the sacrifice of Americans in Normandy 80 years ago. But recognizing that there are important security partnerships in the past does not mean that we can't have disagreements with allies in the present about how to preserve our shared security for the future. And that's what this is about. There is no amount of bullying, no amount of obfuscating, no amount of confusing the issue. Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change. And because it hasn't changed, this is why President Trump's policy in Greenland is what it is. It's consistent with the first Trump administration, where you saw significant investments in Arctic security, and it will continue over the next 4 years under President Trump's leadership. And let me finally, before I kick it over to the media, make one comment about the people of Greenland. The colonel here, the base commander, who came here first as a second lieutenant, and I guess, Colonel, this is your second duty station here, and we're proud of you and proud of all of you guys who are serving and helping keep us safe. I heard a lot about the respect that our American troops show for the local Greenlandic population, the way that we make and create shelter for hunters and dog sledders, the way that we found ways to turn over traditional tribal land to some of the local populations in order to ensure that they're able to live in accordance with their values. We respect, as the president said in his State of the Union address, we respect the self-determination of Greenlanders. We believe in the self-determination of the population of the people of Greenland. And our argument is very simple. It is not with the people of Greenland, who I think are incredible and have an incredible opportunity here. Our argument really is with the leadership of Denmark, which is underinvested in Greenland and underinvested in its security architecture.
They got Chinese and Russia ships all over the place floating around.
That simply must change. It is the policy of the United States that will change. And I'm proud to be able to stand here with so many brave Americans to better understand the security mission and better understand what you guys do each and every day. For that, I'm grateful for your service. I'm even more grateful. I love you guys. I'm proud of you guys. And President Trump stands behind you. And
JD Vance continued and he said, you know, we need Greenland. It's very important for international security purposes. We got to have Greenland. Can't have Russian ships, China ships, Russia ships floating around all over the place. They've done not a good job at securing the area. I'm going to jump into the comments. LJ writes, a growing interest from Russia and China. Its location is near potential trade routes increases its importance to the United States 100%.
how we doing? It's cold as here. Nobody told me.
A visit to troops stationed here was the only engagement for a second-in-command on manoeuvres.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Sending a clear signal to the country that retains sovereignty of the world's largest island. He said he didn't envisage military force being necessary, but President Trump hasn't ruled that out. And with a $2.5 trillion treasure trove of minerals under the snow, islanders are suspicious about America's motivation.
We've always looked at America like the nice big brother to help you out. And now it's like the big brother's bullying you.
I feel like US is forcing us to dance.
Yes.
Like, come, you're gonna dance with me now. It would be so much nicer if they were like, would you like to dance?
That skepticism has been fueled by the Russian president telling them to take Donald Trump's proposition seriously. And the US president isn't backing down.
We need Greenland, very importantly, for international security. We have to have Greenland. It's not a question of, do you think we can do without it? We can. If you look at Greenland right now, if you look at the waterways, you have Chinese and Russian ships all over the place.
Very few people took his comments about this seriously. But the fact that the president is still talking about Greenland, that the vice president has been to a security base there, and that the Russian president is involving himself in the issue, takes this to a whole new level, to what can only be perceived as a genuine threat.
Based on this, Denmark's king issued a statement of support on social media. We live in an alternate reality. There should be no doubt that my love for Greenland. This is what King Frederick said. U.S. delegation also includes Vance and his wife, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Energy Secretary Chris White. The initial plan and the trip for Vance and his wife was to visit a dog sled race and then also head to this base. There's been some backlash. Public protesters are outraged from authorities, both in Greenland and Denmark, prompting U.S. delegation. It has to be secure.